A warm welcome to the big meetup organized by Quantum Amsterdam and the Center for Quantum and Society. In the next 2 hours, you will learn more about what the Center for Quantum and Society is about. We'll discuss some of the ethical, legal, and societal aspects of quantum technologies, and you will learn how to get involved. My name is Deborah Nas. I will be your host for today. I'm a part-time professor at the Delft University of Technology, but I'm especially here today in my role as the lead initiative for the Center for Quantum and Society. We started almost a year ago, and by now we're ready to scale up. So we'd like to share our plans and what we're planning to do and how we can work together. We're very proud to have an amazing line of speakers. And we were looking for the best people in their field. And we happened to end up with an all-women lineup, which is rather special. Yes. That also means that a person who would usually be on stage, our research lead for the societal impact, Julia Kramer, now here in the front, took a step back for diversity reasons. And we will see some of the great men in our core team today on stage interviewing some of the great women. And one of the first great men that I would like to introduce is Victor Land. And he's our coordinator for the action line Quantum and Society, and he would like to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deborah. Great man, that's kind of terrifying. Really excited to be here, extremely excited to see so many of you here, and I got 2 thumbs up from Julia that there are even more people online, so also welcome to you online. That camera or that camera. I can, of course, not see you, but Julia will be my portal if there's anything urgent. I just want to sketch a little bit broader why we're here today. And I think a lot of you are here because you somehow feel or think or you got a notion that quantum technologies somehow will change society. Even though we might not really know what those quantum technologies are exactly, and we probably don't really know how quantum technology will change society, but I think we all feel that this change will be there. And I think the role of our action line, which we call Quantum and Society, is exactly to make clear what the change might be and what it implies, for instance, for the way we think about the legal aspects or the way we think about the ethical choices we make about this technology or the way we need to communicate about this very complex and disruptive technology. And I think the Center for Quantum and Society is the core of these activities. It's the place where everyone can come together to work on these questions and to come up with new ways to work with quantum technologies for the good of society, right? So I hope you all share this excitement about this, but I can imagine you have many questions about this, so I hope we can address those today. Also here, as well as for those online that are joining us, there's ample opportunity to ask questions and have a discussion. So that's it. I don't want to make it any longer than necessary. So without any further ado, please, Deborah, she will introduce the Center for Quantum and Society.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, for everyone online, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Also, please, if you want to, please mention your name and organization so we have a bit of idea where the question is coming from. And Julia will moderate and pick out the interesting questions and make sure they get asked to the people on stage. First, it's up to me to tell you a bit more about the Center for Quantum and Society and what we're planning to do. I'll tell you a bit about the what, the why, and the how. And let's start with the what. What are we? Well, we're a knowledge and co-creation center to maximize the positive and minimize the negative societal impact of quantum technologies. And we'll do so by focusing on 3 core aspects: the ethical, legal, and societal aspects of quantum technologies. And we do so in collaboration between Quantum Delta Netherlands, some experts from the program, as well as our 3 key research partners. TU Delft is in the lead for the ethical research, University of Amsterdam for the legal, and Leiden for the societal impact. And this is a rather unique program in the world. Nowhere else has significant budget been dedicated to researching the ELSA elements in an early stage of a technology development. And we hope we can learn a lot from things that went wrong in the past, for example, from AI. And we'll try our best to do better. And we have the unique situation that the technology development is in such an early stage that we actually can have an influence and steer the development of the technology in the direction for good. And why is this important? And why is this difficult? Well, we have to look ahead, and the future is unknown. And when you look at technological innovations, very often the unintended effects of our innovations are really difficult to envision. As an example, if we look back 100 years ago, our key problem in cities was horse manure. It was piling up meters high in cities, 1 million kilograms of horse poo a day. And the city was unlivable. You couldn't walk through the streets. There were dead horses on the streets, diseases everywhere, and we didn't know how to solve it. But luckily, the car came to the rescue. And the car would solve our problems and would clean up our cities. And nobody at the time could ever envision that 100 years later, everybody in the city would have 1 or 2 cars, and it will pollute the air and make our cities unlivable again in a very different way. Besides, technology can be used for anything, right? For good and for bad. And nuclear technology is great when we use it to cure cancer, but it's horrible when you put it in a nuclear bomb. Drones are great when it carries a defibrillator and it rescues life, and it's horrible when governments use it to spy on their people. Artificial intelligence and facial recognition is great when we use it for security reasons, and it's horrible when we use it to single out minorities. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to think through things from the very start. And we need to start with an understanding of what is the technology. And then how could we use that technology to create new applications? And once we understand the applications, we can understand the ethical, legal, and societal impact on society, on our world. And once we understand that, we can use that knowledge and that understanding to influence the development of the technology and to steer regulation, governance, rules, policies, best practices, to help steer things in the right direction. That will influence how the technology further develops, but it will also define what type of applications will be allowed or not allowed, and what it can do and how we will regulate it. So those applications are key. Without understanding the applications, this process cannot get started. And to be able to think about the applications, we need to engage a broader stakeholder group, non-quantum experts. And to be able to do that, we need to think about how we communicate about quantum. Because it is not that easy at the moment. What we currently do is we start with spooky action at a distance. And if you think you understand it, you don't understand it. This is counterproductive. Then we move on. By the way, we have one of our PhDs, Aletta Mijnsma. She looked at 501 TED Talks about quantum technology. And 23% of them adopt the spooky frame, right? Once we do this, we move on to qubits. And they can be 0 and 1 at the same time, and you can go in superposition and entanglement. And then we talk more about words that nobody understands with abbreviations that nobody can remember if you're not a quantum expert. So the questions here are, how much and what do people need to know to be able to engage in the discussion? Is it enough to just say, well, it's a special type of computer that can do some computations really fast? Or do we need to tell more, and what? And to whom? And how much can we simplify without misinforming? Is it a problem if we say a quantum computer can explore all options at the same time? Technically, it's incorrect. But is it a problem? Or does it help us? Once we found the language and we get non-quantum stakeholders on board more easily, we can make the step towards envisioning future applications. And this is really, really difficult. It's like we've just invented the laser by Ted Mainman in 1960s, and then we're trying to think decades ahead that lasers would allow us to read information from a CD-ROM, scan entire buildings, use it as entertainment on a dance party, operate on ice, and even read prices from barcodes in the supermarket. It's almost impossible. Nevertheless, we need to try. And the people who can do this really well are science fiction writers. And I want to show you a movie from 1964, Arthur C. Clarke, Space Odyssey, and he was remarkably good at it. So in 1964, he predicted basically the internet.
But what about the city of the day after tomorrow? Say the year 2000. I think it will be completely different. In fact, it may not even exist at all. Oh, I'm not thinking of the atom bomb and the next Stone Age. I'm thinking of the incredible breakthrough which has been made possible by developments in communications, particularly the transistor and, above all, the communications satellite. These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other, wherever we may be, where we can contact our friends anywhere on Earth, even if we don't know their actual physical location. It will be possible in that age, perhaps only 50 years from now, for a man to conduct his business from Tahiti or Bali just as well as he could from London. In fact, if it proves worthwhile, almost any executive skill, any administrative skill, even any physical skill, could be made independent of distance. I am perfectly serious when I suggest that one day we may have brain surgeons in Edinburgh operating on patients in New Zealand. When that time comes, the whole world will have shrunk to a point, and the traditional role of the city as a meeting place for man would have ceased to make any sense. In fact, men will no longer commute, they will communicate. They won't have to travel for business anymore, they'll only travel for pleasure. I only hope that when that day comes, and when the city is abolished, the whole world isn't turned into one giant suburb.
This is really impressive, right? Looking ahead and actually describing our world of today pretty well. But there's also a significant part of his vision that is not true, at least not yet. Cities are getting bigger and bigger. So the idea that the cities no longer have a role, he's completely off. And that is what happens when you try to predict the future. At some point you will be right, and at some point you will be fully off. And we need to accept that. That also means we don't need one vision. One vision will be always wrong, right? We need a whole set of scenarios to think things through, and what the technology will enable and how it will change society and what it can do for us. And that will be a very exciting journey. And in doing so, we need to manage expectations at the same time, because before you know it, you have these future visions, and quantum computers will help us save all of our biggest problems, and we're generating hype. And the hype needs to be managed. And most of the attention today actually is focused on quantum computers. But if you're familiar with the concept of technology readiness levels, it's actually the furthest down. If you compare it to quantum networks and quantum sensors, they're way up. They will hit markets much sooner. They will affect our world much sooner. And it's our task as the Center for Quantum and Society to also help people think about this. So this will also be a core part of our focus. And in doing so, we need to engage stakeholders. Now, the key question is here, which stakeholders, and how do you engage them? We did some research amongst possible stakeholders, and there are three key groups. Private end users in companies, public stakeholders, end users, and the quantum scientists. And how do you sort of trigger them? Because our research also shows that if people know very little, they have little interest. So if they have little interest, we need something to immediately trigger their interest in a very little information, basically. And how do you do that? Well, there are two approaches which might work for different stakeholders, right? It's the carrot and the stick. Is it people being motivated by not being hit by the stick, by the problems that might occur, by the threats, or is it people that go for the big juicy carrot? Well, for ICT specialists, it might be the stick, right? Saying that quantum technologies will break public key encryption. Wake up, get in action. For some policymakers, it might be the awareness that quantum technologies might increase the digital divide. But for other policymakers, maybe even in the same ministry, it's the carrot. It's, technology companies can become a key economic driver for the Netherlands. Quantum is important for our economic future. Or for sustainability managers in large corporates who now have no clue about quantum, it can help you accelerate towards net zero. So what are we going to do to engage with these stakeholders? We're going to do a couple of things in the Center for Quantum and Society. Again, we call ourselves a knowledge and co-creation center. So we create new knowledge, but we also co-create it with others, and we do it ourselves through research, and we engage in workshops and projects. We have 4 key focus areas. The first one is quantum awareness. Currently, amongst non-quantum specialists, there's very little awareness. And our research shows if there's little awareness, the first need for information is, what can it do? Those applications, right? We need to have ideas about those applications. And we're going to do that together with our partners, Quantum Amsterdam and Quantum for Business, who much more focus on actually what is quantum, what can it do? And then we have the add-on, what does that mean for society, businesses, industry? We're going to do master classes. The first one, you'll find the leaflet on the table, is about quantum computing, organized by Quantum Amsterdam. There will be white papers. The first is published today, Learnings from AI. You can download it starting today from our website. We will pop up in unexpected places on all sorts of events where people have not asked for quantum, but we're going to make them enthusiastic about quantum. And if you are organizing an event or something yourself, you can also invite one of our experts to join. The second focus area is ELSA tools. And the first one, Daniel Vrijters from ACP is in the lead. It's the Quantum Impact Assessment. And Elina, you will see her later on stage, is in the task force. And the Quantum Impact Assessment will be an easy-to-use tool to help you assess the ethical, legal, and societal impact of a quantum application once you have an idea of what you want to do. But we'll also develop more explorative tools, like an ELSA card set to be used in brainstorming sessions and co-creation sessions, and we'll experiment with generative AI tools, using generative AI to generate ethical dilemmas and future scenarios, and use that in a co-creation way as a conversation starter, basically. The tools will be ready for you to use by yourself, but we'll also offer it with workshop facilitation and training. The third one is ELSA research. And that will be an entire spectrum of types of research. It will be short projects, like a one-off workshop for a partner, for a client, for a company or an NGO, up to full-scale, multi-year research projects. Again, we'll do that with partners like the Quantum Application Lab, NWO, we're talking to multiple parts of the government, different ministries. And the last is Quantum for Good. And Quantum for Good is about stimulating the development of use cases for good. And one of the first one we're going to pick up is how can quantum accelerate the energy transition? And this is what we call mission-driven innovation. And if you want to be part of it, we welcome you to join. We're going to join hackathons that are being organized around quantum technologies, and we will insert that ELSA element into it. And, we can partner with you as well. Summing it up, 4 focus areas. You're not seeing everybody of the core team, but we put them on this slide. If you would like to get involved, please do so. Talk to one of us during the drinks, or send an email to the Center for Quantum and Society, and I'm very much looking forward to collaborating with you. Thank you very much. We have a few minutes for questions, either in the chat online or physically here. Is there anybody?
Yes, I think we started questions here because the live stream is slightly delayed. Are there any questions already? Yes. Oh, yeah. So we first go to...
Yeah, and the question is, the thing with the catch box is that you really have to talk like right into it. Yes.
All right, my name is Jan Blommaert. And I have a Bioduct. We have an analysis company. And we are preparing for the quantum era. How will you involve industry? Because I think you need industry in order to find the good problems.
Yes, exactly.
And the good solutions.
Yes, yes. So it will be two ways. First, if industry is already, so if you're already working on quantum use cases and you would like to expand that to also assess the ethical, legal, and societal impact, some of our experts can join you in the project. The other way is where we initiate the mission-driven innovation projects, like how can quantum accelerate the energy transition. We'll get quantum experts together with industry experts, because the industry experts actually know what are today's problems that we can't solve. The quantum people might be able to assess what are the underlying mathematical issues there, and can, for example, a quantum computer help solve that? The same for quantum sensors or quantum networks. Yeah, and we'll start with energy transition, but you can envision that there will be multiple themes.
Barbara Goldstein from NIST, and I was curious about this generative AI piece because I'm not that familiar with it. Could you talk a little more about it and how that works?
Yes, yes. So you've probably read in the newspapers or online that we see more and more AI algorithms creating texts, making music, making images, even making videos these days, right? That's what we call generative AI. It's an algorithm that can create something if you give it some input. We're now recruiting, we've opened up a postdoc position at the Faculty of Industrial Design Engineering in Delft. And that postdoc is going to, part of his time, focus on that. So what type of input do you need to give these algorithms, and how can you let it create ethical dilemmas or future scenarios? And because the combinations will be surprising, we expect that things will come out that we as humans won't naturally think of. And that could be really interesting conversation starters in workshops or in innovation teams.
Other questions in the room?
We have one more question and then we're out
This
of
can
time.
also be thrown to the back if people in the back have questions.
Then I suggest we move on because we're on schedule, which is great. We move on to two excellent people. We have Peter here, and Peter is in charge. He's our research lead on the ethics side of things. And we have Freke. Anybody in the quantum community will know Freke Heijman. I think without Freke, Quantum Delta Netherlands wouldn't be here today in the shape it is. So awesome job, and I would like to welcome you on stage.
Okay, thanks a lot, and thanks that you're all here. My name is indeed Peter van Maas, and I have the pleasure to introduce Freke for an interview about the societal side of quantum technology. Freke is indeed, as Deborah said, the co-founder of Quantum Delta NL, so she made this all happen. And you're in the executive board, responsible there for ecosystem development. And you're not only doing that in the board, you're also doing that on the floor, action line 2, which is on system development then for business with valorization and, good Lord, 100 startups you will be developing. So this is indeed big work. You're not only active within Quantum Delta NL, Freek is also active in the World Economic Forum, in Council, and I can't memorize the name, but it's the Global Future Council on Quantum Computing, which advises any project within the forum about quantum computing. You present yourself as a connector of three worlds, policy, science, and those 100 startups which you're going to create. I think it's fair to say that there's a fourth world involved, which you are connecting, and that's society. And that's what I want to use as a bridge towards a couple of questions to you. The first question is, okay, you're in the board. You've launched the center. Does the board has certain expectations of the center? Are there topics on your agenda for which you think, okay, the center should take that up?
Yes, the expectations are very high. So this Action Line 4 and this center that is launched, we see it as the place where the connection to society is made, and actually the boots are in society. So I would say that's the biggest challenge for the center to pick that up, because as Deborah was saying in the presentation, there is this academic reality where we live in with very high academic standards and papers, and there's policy, and it's not on the ground of society. And I think it's extremely important to get this technology at the heart of society. The sooner the better, because you can say it's not there yet, so we have time. But in 5 years, it's not there yet, and we have time. You have to start now. And it's out of our comfort zone. It's out of the professor's comfort zone. Maybe it's even out of Deborah's comfort zone. I don't think so, actually. I think it's in your comfort zone. So that is, what we hope for with this center.
Okay, thanks. Well, we'll keep that to heart, and we'll try to match all your expectations. You say that it is out of our out of your comfort zone, society, but I can confess it's not true. We have collaborating on a little project about internal culture within Quantum Delta NL, a kind of code of conduct for our community itself, and you were participating in that great, and you were a big fighter for a couple of values which place you right in the center of society, namely inclusivity and social security of people working in our community. So very important. Leading to the question, what are there more values you have or societal goals you have in mind when you are developing quantum technologies with Quantum Delta NL? Can you say something more about it?
Yes, well, indeed, this was a very important starting point, because in the end, it's about people. So we build a new technology, but the people build it. So the people working on it should feel good, should be in their core strength, and that is what this manifesto is about. And the same goes for the technology as a whole. You don't build a technology for the fun of it. You build it to use it for good. So that's one of the key elements, of course, of the center and the ambitions. And to me, that's also the essence of it. And if for good. Okay, what does it mean? You can think of climate, you can think of all kinds of things. Something that's very close to my heart, it's access to all. So open access, and to not have the digital divide that there is now, and to make sure that quantum will not feed into that anymore. So that's not something that, the technology itself will solve. So you have to work on it with other stakeholders. And for instance, in the World Economic Forum, there's going to be a task force working on the quantum divide, for instance. So it's on the agenda, and I think, that's very important.
Okay, quantum divide. That is a good one to remember. Indeed, as Deborah said, the center is also to think about how to use quantum for good. And if you want to do that, in your slide, you also presuppose that there is room within Quantum Delta NL to indeed adjust the development of technology in a way that you can realize the good. When you started with developing the program, economic value was kind of central. We wanted to have Quantum Valley in the Netherlands. The main question was how many jobs will be created. Then values came along. The World Economic Forum said quantum technology should be developed for the benefit of humanity. A big word, benefit of humanity. And European Union started to say, okay, think about autonomy of our knowledge and digital security. So these are new values which kicked in. Can they indeed, as presented by Deborah, change the course of action in our program? Can you give examples of how that happened?
Yes, it's very relevant and happening every day. So we started indeed as the National Growth Fund, competitiveness, long-term competitiveness, and that's our main driver. But at the same time, these other goals come along. And one that is really catching up, so to say, is strategic sovereignty. So this is about, well, we know the geopolitics, supply chains, etc. So what you see is that where we used to have one-track mind on entrepreneurship, innovation, R&D investments, now it's suddenly, but do we want to work together with all partners in the world, or do we want to be more selective? And how do we go about? Maybe we should impose certain screening schemes that we can make sure that these entities don't get to our knowledge. So things like that. And it's a whole new ball game, because sometimes these measures that are imposed can slow down innovation or entrepreneurship. So it's really finding a balance between these values, so to say. And for the Sustainable Development Goals, or that's also something, it has been on the agenda for a longer time, like developing global challenges, Dutch solution, mission-driven innovation policies, but for enabling technology as quantum technologies, it's very hard to operate that, because there's no direct link. Because it's an enabling technology, and if you make the link too direct, then you have the risk of hyping. Because if you say, a quantum computer will solve the energy crisis, then it's a hype. So it's a constant struggle. It used to be much easier when it was just innovation and entrepreneurship.
But did it change the development of Quantum Delta NL? Did you make decisions as a board, say, okay, now we can't do this anymore because we have to do that for our moral values?
Yes, and Ulrich is here in the room. I think he can commit to that, saying that the European values and Netherlands as a loyal partner in the EU has changed our course of actions on a daily basis.
Okay, thanks. Okay, if there indeed is room for changing the development of quantum data NL for good, then the next question, also for the center, but also for you, is what kind of goods do we want to include? What kind of societal challenges, moral values do you think we should include in the development of quantum delta NL? This is your moment to directly submit your request to the board. Please state your name and affiliation if you want to kick off this discussion of this question. Someone who wants to? Yes, there are two.
Thank you. I'm Frederik Kerling. I'm from Atos. I think one of the big challenges I'm also quite wondering is the concept of the concept of data ownership in a quantum world, especially if a large quantum internet data is not going to be focused on one part. It's had a large impact on privacy, it's a large impact on what we value as our own. Yeah, I would love to see more on that.
Okay. There was midway.
Yes, my question is, how did you ensure the participation of women? Because when I go to quantum sites, normally I am with one or two other women, and here's you achieved this diversity. So how did you do that for the Quantum Valley? And then how do you want to secure that for the future? I read that you have 2,000 PhDs to come and a lot of things that you want to do. And what's your policy on that, and how do you want to live that?
Do you want to state your name and organization?
Oh yeah, my name is Astrid Bötticher from the University of Jena.
Would you like to have a first response to these two suggestions?
Yeah, well, maybe to start with the second one on women. Thank you for the compliment, but we are not there yet either. So our community here in the Netherlands also still has a strong underrepresentation of women and also other minorities. So it is on top of our agenda. There's no silver bullet that will solve it. It's a very complex problem, but I'm confident that at least we are aware of it, and there's my feeling is there's no longer how do you say, denial, because sometimes there can also be a denial, like, no, there's no problem, no, we all have the same opportunities. No, and I think in the Netherlands here, at least there's awareness and acceptance that there is a problem. It's a hard problem. It should be discussed and it should be worked on. And yeah, I hope with you that slowly but surely we will grow. And yeah, I agree with your suggestion. Let's work on that data ownership.
Okay, thanks. Is there from the chat comment or contribution? Are there more? Yeah, there's a question. Comment.
Michael Aldridge from Wageningen University and Research. One of the comments you kept mentioning was that quantum computing should benefit the world. Most of the problems that have been mentioned so far seem to be quite Western, for lack of a better term. How do we ensure that quantum computing benefits the developing world, such as Africa?
Yeah, it's a very good question. One could say some schemes already are in place for that, like maybe credits that also from that parts of the world you can access, like open access at least to the computing facilities that there are, education, so bring them up to speed. I think also the problems, like climate is not only a Western problem, health, it's not only a Western problem. So I think using quantum computers to solve that kind of problems that also are very relevant in these parts of the countries.
Yeah, now that we get started, I have to stop again. It's unfair. We have to do something about that one too. But please see this question and the discussion as a starting point. So we have the center right now, and we want your contribution to put topics on the table to do quantum for good. Your contributions will be very much appreciated. For now, I have to stand down without not thanking Freke and you for the exchange. Thank you.
Dag meneer.